Hello YouTube! 'Tis I, RootNegativeOne, and the other day I was sort of thinking to all my friends on Layth, how do those guys get presents? Is there Santa on Layth? Does Santa have to fly all the way to Layth to give presents? And I had to know, is there a Santa on Layth? And so I decided to mount a scientific expedition to the North Pole of Layth. Yes, Layth has polar ice caps, I didn't know either, and see if Santa actually lives there. And so here you can see my launch vehicle. I also decided to take a Christmas tree just because, you know, we're in the Christmas season. You got to be a little bit festive. Who knows? Maybe Christmas trees don't grow on Layth. Maybe Santa needs a Christmas tree from us. And so I decided to stick one to the top of a massive rocket and shoot it out all the way to Layth. So here you can just see me completing my orbital insertion to Kerbin, and then doing a quick little time warp to a Joule transfer window. I don't know the angles anymore, just because I always use Kerbal Alarm Clock. It's just a lot easier to use than to try to like line it up with angles and whatever. But anyway, I'm just going to split up the transfer burn into two different burns. One to elongate my orbit to around the height of the Mun, or the Mun's orbital height, and then the other one to get it all the way out to the Julian system. So here you can see me just executing that second burn there with the Wolfhound engine. I just decided to forego the nuclears just to, you know, save on a little bit of time. Those burn times end up being just egregious with the nuclear engines. So anyway, the idea for this video sort of came from Joe Barnard. If you haven't checked out his YouTube channel, it's called BPS Space. He does some really incredible stuff. And one thing he did recently is he sort of had a entire Christmas tree just launched up into the air on a model rocket engine, and he called it Season's Yeetings, and I'm like, all right, I gotta launch a tree in KSP, that would look cool. So here you can see me just coming up on Joule, and for the eagle-eared among you, the bat-eared among you maybe, you may have heard some like birds and whatnot in the background perhaps. I'm actually recording outside at the moment. It's Christmas Eve, and half of my family's German, and in Germany we don't really celebrate Christmas like on the Christmas day. We celebrate Christmas Eve, and then that's about it. And so everybody's sort of doing madness at my house. It's sort of the Christmas chaos, and I wanted to get this recorded and uploaded today. So, you know, I sort of just had to go outside near a pond. The pond is empty, it's very dry at the moment, and I've rambled through the entire like Julian and Laythian like encounter. So here I am coming up on Layth anyway, and you can see Joule setting in the background there. And I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Joule is really cool. Joule and Layth have a cool relationship because Layth is actually tidally locked to Joule, and I discovered some really cool stuff while landing on the pole of Layth here that I didn't expect at all. Things like being able to see the sun sort of like skim the horizon the way it does on Earth instead of fully setting. It does fully set on Layth because the axis of rotation, I think, is pretty centered relative to the sun. But anyway, the fact that Joule is tidally locked here means it stays in the same part of the sky, even on the poles, and it looks really, really trippy. Anyway, moving on here, I just decided to do basically a straight drop onto the pole of Layth. You can see me just deorbiting the craft right now. I'm going to inflate one of those giant heat shields, and you'll be able to see the heat shield didn't really do what it was supposed to, unfortunately, but since I had just a ridiculous amount of delta V here, I really overpacked. It didn't matter because I had already decelerated to like safe entry speeds, and this craft, as you can see, it's just a bunch of wings stuck to a pole. It has a lot of drag, and so it very quickly decelerates, and it makes it relatively safe for re-entry. See, it just immediately flips upside down. Anyway, whatever. So now, the weird thing I found is that, like, since the sun is always at, like, a very, very weird angle at the poles here, it means that you can never really, like, see it properly, as in, like, see the surface properly. And so the ice, the polar ice caps, they look literally black. And since this craft basically just acts like a dart since it's all of these wings, speaking of dart, check out my video, iCard right there. It basically just acts as a dart, always facing downwards, until like the last second when the main chutes deploy, and then it has enough drag on the back half to be able to flip around and orient itself correctly. And once it's oriented itself correctly, it's just a matter of gliding down to the surface and using just a tiny puff of like a little aerospike sky crane that I sort of constructed that I thought was really cool. And anyway, that aerospike sky crane, that's hard to say, is sort of just stuck at the top, and it'll be detached in the same way that any typical sky crane is. And you can see me sort of just firing up those engines here in preparation, I guess, for just a very light touchdown on the surface of Layth. There you go. And then once that's done, I can go ahead and detach that sky crane and sort of smash it into the ground. That's always cool. It makes some cool fireworks. I put a probe core on it so I can sort of control it and watch it as it goes and destroys itself. It took me sort of, I realized I had just an insane amount of delta V on this sky crane, so I sort of just played around with it and flew it around a little bit. Didn't have much control left already. I don't think there's much gimbal, if any at all, on those aerospikes. So there you can see me just sort of just crashing it into the surface. And there, I just find that shot of Jewel in the background so cool. That'll probably be the thumbnail. And so there you go. I can sort of destroy the rest of that sky crane and then switch over, sort of go through a sunrise and a sunset cycle on the pole here. And you can see as I accelerate time, or as I use time warp, it's sort of, the sun just stays on the horizon the entire time. And Jewel just stays locked in the sky, sort of half of it looming ominously. It looks really, really cool. That's just an amazing shot, I find. And of course, it wouldn't be complete without some good fireworks. And so we're here, we're on the surface of Layth, we're looking around. We don't see a Santa. We don't see Santa's hut, no elves. That's terrible. So I think in a follow-up video, maybe next year in KSP2, I'll have to make a mission with like Santa's sleigh and everything, bringing presents to the citizens of Layth. So I think I'll leave it there. Everyone, I'll let you enjoy these fireworks until the end of the video. 'Twas I, RootNegativeOne, signing out.